other thing. Oh, there we go. Yep.
Okay.
We got it.
Recording. Come on.
Welcome to Subluminous. Hopefully you can hear us and see us. We've been having technical difficulties for 2 days now, I guess.
Welcome to Subluminous. Yeah. 2 days. Well, yesterday didn't happen at all. But this is our first show of the week. What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. 100% Thursday schedule change for no reason whatsoever.
For one week only.
While I'm thinking about it, we should probably plug in this laptop so that we don't die in the middle of the broadcast.
That'll be the next thing to happen. And I'm checking. We got
Been having technical difficulties.
Good audio, good video, and I'll try to keep an eye on comments as they come in.
All right. Apparently, I don't have a my cable to plug in my laptop. We'll just see how long this goes.
No. Something is going wrong.
Yeah. So anyway, yesterday definitely total failure. Today we're gonna try and do a little bit better. Although I think it was actually pretty good because in the middle of the read yesterday, even though nobody could hear it, I realized that there were a couple of things that I wanted to change in the text. So when we do the reading today, I don't know if you heard any of it yesterday, but whatever we have today will be slightly different.
Just a little slightly edited. I thought I had a cable for a Mac laptop, but I don't.
Oh yeah, so a regular USB-C will work, but and I know we had 2 of those from the other day that were identical to this one or whatever, but I don't know where the other one is. Well, we can figure it out. We'll see how it goes. I'll turn the brightness down. Maybe I won't die. We can probably go for an hour. Sure. Right. Yeah. All right. So welcome to Subluminous. I'm JD. This is TJ. We are, this is our do-over for episode 2. And today we're talking about Cardinal Point, which is a horror book. We wanted to get into some horror for Halloween. And so this is probably, we like to keep adding books to the list. So this is probably our newest project. And this one's going to be a little bit different because we're going to release it on Vella. And if you're not familiar with Vella,
Kindle Vella.
Yeah. If you're not familiar with it, it's like a token based serialized content platform. So typically you purchase tokens and then you can go and buy chapters. And so the idea is that we would put up the first 3 chapters probably at the end of October, and then it would be on Vella, and then once a week you would get a new chapter. And so if you were interested in continuing with the story, you basically spend your tokens on getting the new chapter every week. So I think TJ's done a couple of Vella things. I've never done it before, so this would be a new experience for me. And then the idea is that if people like it, you keep working on it until eventually it's a complete book, and then eventually you release it as a complete book on as a Kindle ebook or whatever. So traditional publishing once you've done the serialized content. So
I don't think that's the main idea with it, but that's what we're going to do.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
I think a bunch of people do that, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah. So, interesting. I thought it's kind of interesting because, like old radio serials or something that I always thought was really kind of cool, where you heard and listened to these stories like once a week or something like that back in the, 1940s and 50s. And so this is sort of like kind of like a version of that, except that you're getting, or, like, I guess writing magazines and things like that have done that as well. Like Analog magazine did that with sci-fi, where parts of the Dune series were released as chapters in the 60s on a publication called Analog that was a science fiction magazine. So sort of that kind of feel, which I think is kind of cool. So regardless, this is going to be the first chapter from the book. It might end up being the prologue, but it'll be the first reading from Cardinal Point. And I guess I'll just go ahead and start reading. I'm going to put my headphones on. Sorry. This is my other, this is kind of my D-bag thing that I'm doing where I want to hear my own voice. So I'm being a little bit of a diva because I like to read and hear.
It was a huge problem yesterday.
Yeah. I'm the sole reason for all failure yesterday. So I was trying to get these headphones working. So, but I think we got everything working, and looks like it's going to be successful today. So, but I'm doing this so I can hear myself talk. That way I can sort of change my cadence when I'm reading and stuff. So, all right. Cardinal point. Robbie tried to stand patiently. His mother smoothed his hair down with her hand and a little spit, futzing with his cowlick. Are you going to ride the tiger, Bubby? Standing in the ocean air on the huge pier in front of the spinning carousel, Robbie thought about the question. Obviously, the white horse was the only choice, and there was only one white horse. Robbie loved the pier, he loved the carousel, and he loved the white horse most of all. Mom, let me go. Everyone wants the white horse. I got to be first. Robbie wriggled free. He was Mary's only child. Her heart raced a little as he ran toward the spinning carousel. She knew he was safe, but it was hard not to imagine something happening to your only child. He didn't fall off the pier and splash into the dark Atlantic, and he didn't trip and fall into the spinning carousel. Instead, he matched pace with the white horse, running the encircling brick path as it slowed and finally stopped. Mary realized he was right. There was only one white horse. It looked older and more ornate than the other animals. Most of the menagerie was made of airbrush-painted fiberglass and repurposed from other carousels. They all had a kind of Disney-esque look, a giant rabbit that would be more at home in an Easter parade, elephants from the 70s, a princess carriage from the 80s, and a king of lions from the 90s. The white horse appeared to be the only original animal left. It reminded her of old black and white photographs of 1920s Halloween costumes. It certainly wasn't realistic, but it also wasn't in the cartoon style of the other animals. It was an artist's best guess of a horse carved in curls of wood, fleur-de-lis, and covered by generations of paint. The sign by the little ticket booth called him a flyer and a jumper. Further reading revealed the carousel was built in 1875 and originally stood on a similar pier in the Netherlands. The Thomas Quoll family brought it to the point in 1926. They were a prominent Catholic family that tripled their wealth in the roaring 20s, then lost most of it in the Depression. Mary knew the story well. The Quolls would have been the Kennedys a generation early, except for their bad luck. The name ended with a great-great-grandson also named Thomas. He was queer when being queer was simultaneously dangerous, illegal, and condemned by the church, though it was his father that lost the family fortune. The remnants of the family persist with Thomas Square and Quoll Avenue. The whole point was a Quoll idea as well. The family built it in the 1840s, thinking it would eventually be the seat for the Diocese of Maine. But Pope Pius IX moved New Hampshire and Maine from the Boston Diocese to a new diocese in Portland. The name Cardinal Point was meant to be an insult to James Quoll, the progenitor of the idea. The punchline being that no cardinal ever resided at the point. Moving forward, Cardinal Point had to make do as a tourist destination with no significant attractions, which led to buying the carousel. And here it stands, but no one remembers that today. There are dozens of signs on the point like Cardinal funnel cakes and Cardinal gifts, carrying a red bird on their sign instead of a red padre. It's possible that owners of the Point Pontiff knew the origin story when they opened their dive post-prohibition bar, sporting a drunken friar on the sign. They continue notoriously catering to Catholics while raising the middle finger to teetotaling North American Protestants. Mary broke from her historical reverie to see Robbie had mounted the white horse. The greasy teenage kid who ran the carousel wandered out of the center room that housed the controls. He began collecting tickets, which, incidentally, were sold by the equally creepy old man in the ticket booth. There was a moment of anxiety as she watched the teen patiently wait for Robbie to find his ticket. She took 3 steps toward them before Robbie pulled the pale pink paper from his pocket and handed it over. The man continued among the crowd, asking for tickets, and then went back to the central control room. The hurdy-gurdy music continued to play as the carousel began to turn. Mary realized then that the white horse was the only animal to still move up and down during the ride. All the others merely turned counterclockwise. She understood now why the white horse was so popular, but thought it strange that she had only now noticed that detail after all these years of visiting the pier. Robbie rode around several times, disappearing on the far side and reappearing on the near, smiling and waving happily, hanging on to the pole as the white horse rose and fell. Mary stood back from the carousel, intentionally keeping her distance, fighting nervous energy that made her want to hold her son close. She felt the urge to protect him, but she didn't want him to be a mama's boy like his father. She had been married to Jerry, the sperm donor, for 2 years. They had gotten a divorce after she went to the hospital to deliver Robbie, and Jerry went to the Route 1 motel to deliver his cock to his girlfriend Cindy. She and Robbie moved to Cardinal Point the following spring. That had been 8 years ago. She thought her crippling anxiety would abate after moving away from Jerry, but apparently he wasn't the only source of distress. The Paxil helped, and her psychiatrist helped. And while the problem persisted, she was determined not to let it affect her son. She knew he was safe here. She knew he was loved. She knew he would come around the other side of the carousel waving and smiling. Robbie did not appear on the other side of the carousel smiling and waving. The white horse plodded up and down with an empty saddle. Surely he was on some other white horse. No, that was stupid. There was only one. That was the white horse. She saw the flank of the horse pass by. Then she watched its hindquarters disappear around the back of the carousel. Mary thought, he fell off. My God, he fell off the fucking horse. She took 2 steps, then stopped. She looked left and right, scanning for his red jacket and brown hair. Then she ran around to the other side. She thought again. He fell and he's on the other side. He wasn't on the other side. She heard his voice behind her. Mary turned wide-eyed toward the carousel, but she didn't see him. Wherever he was, she couldn't see him. Robbie heard his mother calling his name. She sounded far away, a quiet noise lying under the waves of music and laughter and the sounds of machinery. It was the sounds of machinery that he was drawn to most, a fathomless moving sound. It reminded him of something deep under the water, a voice in the water when you put your head under at the YMCA pool. It was loud but not unpleasant. It didn't have edges, but was soft and pillowy and obvious. And obviously a voice. It said, "Door." Robbie waved at his mother and then turned his head. He saw the door with the little window. Inside was the machine man running the machine. Did the deep voice mean that door? "Door," the voice answered. And Robbie didn't even realize that he had slipped off his horse and was walking around the other animals toward the central column. He saw the sign that read, "Do not enter," and was about to question which door again when the deep voice compelled his hand to the lever-like handle with a final "door." He opened it just enough to slip inside. It was a small room and loud. The machine man was looking out the window with his hand hovering above a big red button. He didn't look down at Robbie. He only continued to stare through the small window. And if he heard the deep voice say, "Stairs," he didn't react to the word at all. Robbie looked down and saw a hinged hatch on the floor. He wondered if the stairs were under the hatch. He gripped the heavy wood with his fingers and pulled it open, revealing stairs into darkness. Robbie walked down, but he wasn't afraid. It wasn't like the basement in his house. This was different. Anyway, the voice had said stairs, so he knew it was the right choice. Mary jumped on the carousel. She ran past the empty Tiger and the carriage with the twin girls. She groped and looked and turned, but Robbie was not on the ride. She took a turn and scanned the surrounding crowd as they passed through her vision, looking to see if he had stepped off. The carousel wasn't fast. She had easily hopped on. Robbie could have just as easily hopped off. Faces slightly blurred by motion passed in front of her, then gave way to the end of the pier, the dark night, and even darker sea. No one was standing back there, and more importantly, not Robbie. She spun back to the carousel and decided to approach the teen in the booth. She walked to the center and saw the young man staring through the window. He saw her and pointed down to the sign on the door. Mary screamed at him and slapped the old ornate window frame, rattling the new replacement plexiglass. "Stop the fucking carousel!" The kid hit the red button, and she felt the carousel begin to slow. but she didn't see her son. She began screaming, "Robbie! Robbie! Robbie!" Robbie closed the hatch above him and continued down. He felt a little dizzy but good. The ride like riding the elevator at Mommy's work. He heard her voice again calling, "Robbie!" But Mommy's voice was quiet compared to who was it? Daddy? Was that Daddy's voice? Robbie responded to his daddy's voice. Daddy was down the stairs. He couldn't see Daddy down there. He wasn't sure if he could remember what Daddy looked like. He had dark hair like Robbie and a red jacket like Robbie. Yes, in the picture, Daddy had a red jacket like Robbie. Robbie saw red at the bottom of the stairs. Daddy was walking up to meet him in his red jacket. Daddy swelled up around inside the staircase, like floodwaters. Daddy was big and filled the stairwell, making the cinder blocks dark and wet. Robbie needed to walk down the stairs. He continued past the blocks. He followed Daddy and exited the stairwell. The stars emerged outside under the pier. Robbie saw the wave rush up and flow through the metal balusters and tread of the staircase. Daddy, dark and red, reached up and surrounded Robbie in a hug. Daddy filled his lungs with water. Robbie tasted the burning salt and seaweed. Robbie heard his daddy say, "Robbie," and Robbie was sinking. The cold hug began to feel warm, and Robbie remembered swimming at the YMCA again. Except at the YMCA, you would wear your water wings. At the YMCA pool, you would float. But down here with Daddy, you sink. Robbie drifted downward, and the dark red turned to black. There was no more light and no feeling, not even the burn of salt or the cold hug. Robbie tried to say Daddy, but there was nothing left but the voice washing over him. He thought maybe he heard Mommy say his name one last time through the black and red, but it was washed away by Daddy's voice. Child. How was that?
That was good.
Yeah.
Much. I don't know what you changed from yesterday, but I really wasn't paying attention yesterday.
Yeah, I deleted something that didn't seem like it fit. I think it'll be a good chapter later.
Yeah.
And I was trying to sort of wedge it into this one, but it would just I don't know. It seemed like it was too, I don't know, too forced. So
Okay.
I decided that it was something that needed to come out in the middle of the book. It was sort of another scary thing, but it would have been it was confusing. And the more I thought about it yesterday, the more I realized how much more confusing it was. So
Yeah, this flowed a lot better.
Yeah.
And that was Cardinal Point. And I think we're reading another chapter from this next week, since it'll basically be Halloween.
are we doing it next week, or are we skipping a week and then doing the following? I don't know. I can't remember. What is next week's not Halloween, right?
Yeah.
Week after is. This
Yeah.
is the
19th.
19th,
It'll be the 26th.
26th. Yeah, I guess so. Okay. So maybe we'd do a twofer. Or I guess we can skip. I was thinking we were going to read A Sovereign in Hell, but yeah, we can do another Cardinal Point.
Both fit. Well, the 31st would be Wednesday anyway, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's
Anyway.
discuss calendars on the live stream.
Yeah. The 19th is Wednesday, Thursday, and
Yeah.
then the 20th is tomorrow, which is Friday.
Yeah.
And what comes after that?
The 21st, which is Saturday.
I think you were sarcastic about talking about calendars.
Oh yeah, 100%.
100%. Cardinal Point. So
how? I guess how did you come up with this idea for Cardinal Point, or where did the generation come from?
Well, I was watching a YouTube video about this guy. He wasn't really talking about books, but he was talking about how book covers used to be cool. They used to be like pieces of art. And he started showing a bunch of these horror covers, like I guess what Goosebumps was trying to be for adults or for kids. Goosebumps being for kids, but they all had those like drawn and painted covers, like, you know, the cartoonist and, well, this is a movie, but like Monkey Business and the Puppet Master and all that kind of shit. And then that got me thinking, like, I want to write a series of books like that. That could be just like little horror, kind of one-shot horror novels that are like, maybe seem goofy if you just look at the cover, but then it's like a lot more serious, like something like It and Christine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the thinking. Like I was initially going to call it Killer Carousel with two Ks,
Yeah.
and then it was the Carousel Killer of Carrion Cove or something.
Hmm.
And then you just shot that the fuck down.
Yeah. I don't know if I was I super harsh. I didn't intend to be. I think what happened was,
You can be harsh, man.
yeah. Oh, well, I
No,
apologize.
not.
So yeah, I thought like Carrion Hill was just too on the nose, and so then I came up with something that was really terrible, which was Canary Point, right? And you shot that down. But then we decided Cardinal, and it came sort of across the religious connotations of the word cardinal.
Canary Point was perfect. I just needed revenge.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, everything, all of our decisions are made by what kind of revenge points we can get. Yeah. So, so through whatever that process was, I got interested in the idea.
Yeah.
And so then I was thinking, okay, well, I got to write this one-off thing where a kid dies at the end of the chapter or whatever. And then I was thinking about how in It, like, they kept talking about floating bodies and how we all float down here or whatever. And I'm like, oh, I got to get a dig at It. So instead of floating, everybody's sinking. And so like I thought about sinking into black water and dying and that kind of thing. And
this is how the Ninja Turtles were born. Like, well, they got the hand, we got to be the foot, and they're the stick, but it's Splinter. And
yeah, yeah, that makes it sound much more stupid than what I've thought in my head. But yeah, you're probably right. I don't know. Sometimes I like to do the opposite of what another writer has done, because it seems like an interesting way to jump off to another thing, right? Like, and the idea is that like I don't want it like a tagline where there's like some clown saying we all sink down here or whatever. That's really dumb.
Yeah.
But it's an inspirational way to sort of think about drowning or dying or something like that. And so you sort of take those notions. I think that's something that, like, I don't know, I've heard creative people try to do, where they sort of steal all these things and recombine them and then come up with a new idea that's different, right? And so
everything's a remix.
Yeah. And so that was I thought it was interesting to think about, like, sort of murky depths and drowning. And so then I was sort of explored that. But that inspiration allowed me to, like, bust out, 1,800 words, pretty quickly. Which makes, when I get excited about an idea, I realize, okay, I think I'm on the right track. And then I read it back to myself and I was like, okay, this sounds good. I would want to hear this as an audiobook. And so then again, that sort of confirmed myself on the right track. So that's sort of my process. I think yours is sort of a little bit different, where you kind of bust out like a sort of a bunch of ideas and words sort of all at the same time. And it's almost like a sketch. Whereas, like, I don't do a lot of post editing. I'm sort of doing like intermittent editing as I'm writing, and then thinking about what I might change, but it's going to be like little changes, little directional things. Whereas yours is like here's a block of text. What are we going to do with it? So I don't know if that's fair, but that's sort of my estimate of how you work versus how I work.
Yeah. The more I do that, the more excited I get about it, and the better the writing gets while I'm getting it. The less the middle and end tend to need less editing than the beginning.
Yeah,
for me.
Yeah, and I think we've done this a couple of times where we're texting back and forth about an idea, and then I'm like, "Is this what you're sort of thinking?" And then you sort of reply like, "This is all good. This is exactly what I expected to happen, because every time we have this conversation, good stuff comes out from it or whatever." Right? And so So I think there's a comfort there, which is great. Like, I think that's what you kind of want as a writing partner. And so that part of the process works. And then I think the editing process, where sort of you give me a chunk of text, and then I go in and I sort of I look at it as a challenge, where I'm like, okay, if you gave me a trope, do I change the trope to something else? Do I embrace it? What am I doing here? And that, I think that sort of works too, right?
Yeah.
Because usually what happens is because I don't read your chapter and then edit it. I edit as I read your chapter and see if I can figure out where you're going. So as I'm reading the sentences, I'm like, oh, is he going to do this? And I'm sort of predicting whatever the next thing is. And then I'll like text you and I'm like, hey, is this where you're going? And you're like, yep. And I'm like, oh, I knew it. So then I know that I'm on the right track. And then sometimes I'm not on the right track, right? And I'll write like a sentence and I'm like, and then the next thing I read is like, I'll be like, I mean, literally, I did this once where you had like a lady that was like sleeping. And I didn't actually know where she was sleeping. And I'm like, well, maybe she's like outside or something. And so then I like sort of mentioned like where she was. And then like the very next sentence, she was like at home in bed or whatever. I'm like, oh, she's not like there was like wind and stuff, but it was like her windows were open. And I was like, oh, maybe she's outside. And so I was like, oh, she's camping or she's on the beach or something. And so like I started going down this track or whatever. And then I realized I was totally off. And I was like, ooh. But it's exciting to me to sort of get that initial idea and then see where it goes. Because that's, to me, that's almost, you're in this sort of flow of pure creativity. And so I don't mind throwing it away if it's a miscalculation. And when it's not a miscalculation, it's almost always something that seems good to me. So I don't know if there's like a psychological reason for that. I don't even know if this is the right way to do anything. It's not like I'm an expert editor or we're expert writers or anything, but I think the way that we're trying to figure it out feels right. And so until it doesn't feel right, I'm going to keep doing it this way.
Yeah, I think as long as it's getting us excited and keeping us excited, and we keep getting, like I think you were saying, just doing this, starting with error correction and Sam Yeager, kind of got you into doing Sovereign more than you were.
Yeah. The writing influences writing, in a way that I didn't realize it would. So I noticed. So we've been doing some meetings at this local coffee place recently, and every time we're out meeting or whatever, we've got our writing gear out and all that stuff or whatever. So we're being like the D-bags at the coffee house with the typewriters and stuff. But it also strikes up conversations, and we tend to be talking to other writers, which is kind of interesting. So there's something where writers sort of seek it out and then they see it and then they're like, oh, well, this person's looks like they're writing something. We're going to go talk to them. I don't know how that happens, but it just sort of, it does. And you said it happened to you all the time, which I thought was kind of interesting. And now I'm starting to realize it's happening to me all the time too. And so what I'm hoping is that what we're seeing is sort of a cultural movement about writing, in the way that we've seen other sort of artwork have cultural movements. And I think because of the nature of writing, where people are afraid to publish, all of that stuff sort of happens in the background and behind the scenes. And I don't want it to be like that anymore. So I think this stream is about talking about our process open and honestly, so that other people can look and see if it's something that's right for them. And so today I had somebody come up to me and he was like, hey, I just want to talk to you a little bit more about writing. I was like, that's really cool. Let's do it. And we exchanged information, and he had mentioned this like reluctance to publish. And I think everybody has that reluctance to publish, right? You're one of the first people that I've met that I feel like you just sort of blaze through it and you're like, I'm just going to do it. Right. And my wife even has this quote where she's like, the absolute like balls to just like go and like put a book out there. Right. I don't think there's a lot of people that, and she didn't mean it in a bad way. It was just like, how do you manifest this thing that says, I'm just going to do this. Right. And I think it's hard to get over. But I also think that probably because it's risky and, and that kind of thing. And I talked to other writers and They don't want to risk people not liking their stuff. And I get that. But there's 9 billion people on the planet, right? Somebody likes your writing. I don't care what it is, right? If there's the guy that produces the Tyrannosaurus Rex turned me gay or whatever, like books, like there is somebody out there that's going to read your stuff. So, you got to write it.
There's
You
a
got to get
lot
it
of
out
people
there.
out there who read
Yeah.
that stuff.
And that's a huge genre. So that's sort of why I picked it. Right.
Yeah.
But it's not mainstream. Right.
Yeah.
I don't even know if our stuff's mainstream. I feel like it probably is. And I feel like that's what we're targeting, but maybe we'll find a set of subset of people that aren't mainstream, right? Maybe it's like writers that like writers, right? That would be a subset, right? Or I don't know. I have no idea, right? So we're going to find them on this sort of vidcasting or streaming journey or whatever.
Yeah. Whenever I tell somebody, even a stranger like that guy, that we're doing this, everybody's like really excited and seems really into it.
Yeah. So I hope the idea is good. It seems solid to me. I know we've had several meetings where we've talked about, what does streaming mean to authorship. And I don't know of anybody else that's doing streams about writing and releasing their content directly. And so this kind of idea where we're in a serial way, we're releasing new content every week that is not somebody else's content. This is not fan fiction, right?
Yeah.
This is not somebody else's book. This is our stuff that we're doing the behind the scenes work to write. We're talking about the tools that we're using to write. And then we're also bringing it to an audience and hopefully finding an audience and growing that audience of people that are going to be interested in our writing in the way that they would be interested in other authors.
Yeah. The alternative to having a stream like this is just a camera with us sitting at a computer or something typing, which is not very exciting.
Yeah. And I mean, there's all kinds of streams out there, right? So it's not like we're not inventing anything new about streaming. We're not inventing anything new about authorship. But I do think there's a barrier that authors have where they are so worried about selling that $1.99 book on KDP or Amazon or whatever that they don't want to release their content. And I don't think that's the right way to go. I think you do release your content. I think you release it for free, or you try to monetize advertising or whatever it is. But the goal is to not hope that you're going to find a group of readers after the fact. The hope is that you're going to find a group of readers while you're developing your stories and stuff, right? So, and that's how other people find their content, right? Or develop their content and find their audience. So I don't think authors should be any different. But it does take a little bit of, in the same, like if you're willing to like risk everything and then put everything into one book and then put it out there, you should also be willing to risk one chapter, right? And so we're just going to risk one chapter at a time and hopefully get more listeners.
Yeah. We got plenty of material. So we don't seem to be running out of new ideas.
Yeah.
Anytime soon.
Yeah. And so we've got this Vella event that's coming up. We should probably put a date on it. Should we say, what do you think? Halloween? Should we do it Halloween? Would we be ready by then?
3-4 chapters Halloween. I think the way Vella works, well, you'll get 3 for free, and you can keep going. We're going to be putting one out every week.
Okay.
So
4
Halloween.
chapters for Halloween. Let's risk it, baby.
Yeah.
So 4 chapters for Halloween. That's the goal. So and we'll do at least one more read. Not next week, but the week after for Halloween. And then if you go on Vella, you'll be able to see the 3rd chapter.
Halloween is Tuesday, so
Tuesday. We can do an early one.
I probably could, yeah.
Yeah, do an early one or something like that. Or we could release it and then just do a read on. Why don't we do that? We'll release it on Halloween and then we'll do a read the following day. Right. And then if we look like really ragged and terrible on the stream, you'll know that we procrastinated and wrote all of our chapters an hour before
Yeah.
the episode or something.
Or we got up at 6 and like, we got to go to Honest right now.
Yeah.
And bust this stuff out.
Yeah.
Because we're writing other stuff, not because we're.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. No, I mean, we're always writing. So, but I think we've put this in a priority on this one because of the season, right? It's a spooky season. So
Yeah.
it's fun to do some Halloween oriented stuff.
Yeah. And should we talk about my sort of changing my daily word goal kind of process?
Yeah. So, yes, I think we should, mostly we should talk about it because I almost never understand what you're talking about the first time you tell me something. And then I sort of process it and then we talk about it again. And then like, sort of like with Vella, like I didn't really understand how it worked at all until like last week or no, this week, until we were streaming about it. And then I was like, oh, I get it now. Right. And so, I think that sort of that goal structure that you have is so different from the way that I work. I think it's really interesting to listen to because there are probably other people out there that would work more towards your structure than mine, and then vice versa. So yes, please explain, and then we can talk about
it. My kind of gold star daily word count goal has always been 5,000 words. And I wrote a book a couple of years ago, Brick's Lot, where I was consistently hitting, 400 to 6,500 words a day. And I think I wrote that in like 40 days. It's about 97,000 words. And could do a bit of polishing still, even though I released it. But I think it's it's still my favorite thing that I've written so far. But now, since we have error correction series and that we're trying to put a couple of books out, and the Sam Yeager series that we're trying to put a couple of books out, and Cardinal Point, my goal now is 1,500 words daily for error correction, 1,500 words daily for Sam Yeager, and about 500 words ish for Cardinal Point. And I think that'll give us a finished book by the 20th, where we're at with both of those, the 20th.
Yeah.
Finished book for both of those series. And we're probably going to go with what you add. We're probably going to be over 2,500 words a week.
Yeah.
For Cardinal Point. So that'll give us at least one chapter a week for that.
Yeah.
And that's just having that kind of word goal and hitting it just feels really good to me. And when I hit it, I'm more likely to hit it the next day and the next day.
Yeah.
But my day job is the biggest hurdle right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I kind of want to talk about that too a little bit, right? It's not like we're paid authors, although, I do some writing for, like I do video and animation, and I do some writing for that. So I do written content for the screen, for clients. Right. So, but that's like commercial level stuff or industrial level stuff where somebody's selling a product and then I put on sort of my radio voice and think about like what the product is. And then
the subject and some parameters are kind of given to you. Or?
Yeah. And a lot of times I'm just doing my homework on whoever the client is, and I go to their website and I sort of consume all of their stuff and then give them their content back, but in a format that's written for the screen that has animations to go with it. And then they go, oh, okay, yes, I see where you're going with that.
In a format that somebody's going to watch it and not fall asleep.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully not in like 2 or 3 minutes worth of content. Yeah. But so there's sort of a craft there, the writing craft. But it's not writing fiction, fiction's a whole different monster, and the creativity and where creativity comes from and all that stuff is a whole different monster. But I think probably if I had to say that there was a sort of a superpower between us that works for this situation, it's that I think we're able to engage with each other's writing and get excited about the prospect of whatever the project is.
Yeah.
Which is a huge one, right? And doing something with a partner, like has its ups and downs, right? Like if you're doing something on your own, you don't have to share anything with anybody. But if you're doing something on your own, you also can't share anything with anybody, right? Unless you're just going and finding people that are willing to listen.
There's a joke there that I won't say.
Okay.
It's always better with a partner.
Yeah. I definitely saw you smiling.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, I think that part works. What I am wondering about is what does it look like at the end of the process, right? Once we got a book published. And so I feel like as we move forward and we start seeing the craft turn into something else beyond just a stream and just a single chapter read, and then we now have books, right? That whole process. It's going to be interesting to see what that machine looks like. Whatever it is, the machine that we're creating.
Yes.
You about to sneeze? TJ's over here trying to hold a sneeze back.
I guess it wouldn't. Like, who cares if I sneeze?
Yeah, nobody cares if you sneeze, man.
I'm a human.
Yeah. So, so I think that's all I wanted to talk about process wise. You got any tools or anything you want to talk about?
Same tools.
Yeah.
Free write and a timer, pretty much.
Yeah. And then
I do Pomodoros sometimes. Pomodoros. Reset 20, 25 minutes and just nothing else in the world matters but what you're doing for that 20 minutes.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I have no idea what that is. Yeah. I mean, I'm 100% distraction positive, right? Like everything I do is with like the TV on and a child running through the room and a dog that needs to go get walked and everything else. So your drive towards distraction free sounds pretty blissful, but I don't think I ever get there unless it's like 2 a.m.
Its downside is when you don't get to do it, you feel pretty shitty about the entire day.
Yeah. Okay.
Do we want to? Are we going to participate in NaNoWriMo?
In what?
Novel writing month. Write a novel. Right. I think we can do more than that, but it's like you write 50,000 words in 30 days in November.
Yeah, see, this is where you like bust out with something that I've never even heard of it before, right? And like I probably should have, right? If I'm going to be a writer, you'd think
so this is the author online world, man.
Okay, so yeah, so you would think that if I decided that I was going to write and get into streaming and do all this other stuff, that I would go and do my homework, but no.
I don't want to insult anybody, but I think a lot of me, for a time included, I think could get involved in all this stuff and do all this other shit and not write.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
I think the NaNoWriMo thing is like a chance to not do that, but also a lot of people fail.
Yeah. So how do they know that you like? Do you have to start and then finish within a certain amount of time?
Yeah, November 1st. And November 30th, you should have 50,000 words. You can register on their site and like put your word count in every day.
Yeah. And how do they know you have isn't something that you've already written?
Total honor system.
Oh, okay. Okay. Gotcha. All right. Yeah. Then we're ready because I could bust out 50,000 words, no problem. And it is totally not something that I've already written.
It would just be you got Sovereign. We got 20,000 words in each of these other. Mm-hmm. So we've already won. Exactly.
Yeah. It does sound cool. I guess does it have to be totally new project? Is that the idea? Is that like I'm going to start a novella and produce it in a month?
It could be like the second 50,000 words of something.
Okay, so it could be something that already exists and you're just continuing it.
Yeah, which we definitely have.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I could see that then. Yeah.
Yeah.
And totally I'm not going to cheat.
I've cheated before.
Yeah. We're going to get banned from a thing that we're not even going to participate in. No, that's cool. Yeah, I don't really know about the community except apart from like as a consumer of books, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's really interesting to me. We should definitely look at it. And we should probably keep checking. It's in November, you said?
Yeah, there's
Okay.
a bunch of Preptober vlogs and
Okay.
NaNoWriMo daily vlogs and all
All
that.
right. Well, I've got a distraction to add to the list then.
Yeah.
So I guess we talked about the Palmera a little bit yesterday during our failed stream. So I figure we should probably sort of do the update. I've been using it a little bit for notes.
Yeah.
What I do like about it is it's sort of like an old school like DOS like word processor, where just save file, edit file. It's not linear like the free write. Uh, and It's very portable. I wish it was a little bit wider. It's about like a half a shift key too short.
Could do with the full keyboard.
Yeah, and so it's almost as big as like my laptop keyboard, but just small enough that my pinky doesn't quite fit where I feel like it should. And so all of the keys that I reach out with my pinky to hit are the wrong keys. But I think that's something you could overcome pretty quickly. Although if you were switching back and forth between the laptop and the Palmero, I don't know if that would be inconvenient because you'd sort of have to readjust your sort of physical understanding of the keyboard, especially if you touch type, that's what I do. So
Yeah. So for just like pure word generation, what do you think you're using?
it was a little slower just because the keys are arranged a little bit differently too, because it's the Japanese version, and so
Yeah.
the symbols don't quite line up. And so I like look and I'm like, oh, is that where the brackets are? And it's not. The brackets are exactly where your finger thinks they are, but not where the picture of the brackets are. And so so if I ignore the keyboard completely, I do a little bit better. But then there are a couple of things that are just slightly in the wrong spot, and so, or in the spot that I'm not accustomed to, and so I'll hit it incorrectly. So like I hit the up arrow instead of shift a bunch, which then I don't realize I'm not hitting shift, and so so I'm like, where did the cursor go, or something like that. So that part of the Palmero I think was a little bit of a downside. So if I could have like one that was a little bit wider, I think that'd be good. I'm not sure how much I would use it though. I do think I probably would still default back to my phone or my laptop.
So you're 60% phone, 40% laptop.
Yeah, a little more laptop now that we're into some really serious amount of writing.
Yeah.
So there's just only so much that my thumbs can do, and before I'm done. So adding extra fingers into the mix is a good situation.
And how much added work is my spelling giving you?
I mean, I just search and replace all the TEHs, and that's about 90% of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't really edit for grammar. That sort of naturally comes, but it's not anything I think about. So when I see the typos, I just sort of blaze through those.
We got a question.
Okay, cool.
Team Craftable 2004 asks, hello, or says hello, and then asks, what went wrong yesterday? Sound issues. We tried to use the Mac Studio, and I guess I have drivers or something that the thing we're using doesn't like.
Yeah. So we first couple episodes we used my laptop to stream with, which is pretty vanilla setup. I haven't set up any audio drivers or anything. We plugged it into the studio, and for whatever reason, the studio did not want to broadcast the microphones. What I suspected is that like sometimes I think audio setups sort of expect you when streaming to be like on a conference call or something, so you don't want to hear yourself talk, but we actually do want to hear ourselves talk, and we want that to be broadcast. So for whatever reason, it was not coming through. So I think it was some kind of situation there. So when we unplugged and plugged in the laptop, that seemed to work. So we just did that same thing today, although we still had an issue today when we first started the stream. So we rebooted and unplugged it and plugged it back in, and it started working.
Yeah,
so
we turned it off and turned it on again. But
Yeah.
I still don't know why it had why it had my mic and yours seemed like it was getting camera audio.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
And it wouldn't
Yeah. So, we were being like super brave and talking about how great we were, that we were the ones that were only, um, we were rolling our own and doing our own tech support and doing our own switching and everything.
Yeah.
And then that, bit us in the ass
Yeah.
yesterday.
JD's doing a good job keeping the eye contact while I'm like looking around doing other stuff.
It's hard for me to not look at the screen, but yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
On your laptop there?
yeah. So, but I just look into TJ's eyes and everything's okay.
Do I have a shine or does it look like I'm sleeping?
Yeah, you got a little sparkle, at least from, maybe not from the camera. When I'm looking at your eyes from where I am,
I can try to do this.
there's a little sparkle as long as your eyes are super wide open. That was one thing I was thinking about too. Streaming and authorship. I'm like totally the guy that works from home and has like a bushy beard and never gets a haircut and that kind of stuff or whatever. And I will say that I have had to like get haircuts and trim my beard and all that other stuff. Like on purpose, not accidentally. And my wife
is
has
this
made
passive aggressive, because I will get it done again.
No, I think you look great. I'm just saying, like, for whatever reason, I'm just trying to sort of think of like, if you want to be the author that stays at home and doesn't have to do that, maybe streaming isn't the right way to go. Because to me, I thought about sort of the stream before, but now that we're into it, like yesterday, like was the first time I had a little bit of stage fright or panic or whatever, because I was reading and you're like running around the room trying to figure out what was going on, what was wrong or whatever. And I was like, what's happening? And then like, I was like, do I need to breathe? Can I breathe? I'm in the middle of the sentence. Right. And so that was kind of interesting. Right. And so it was
your wife said what about you?
Just noticing that like I'm getting haircuts and stuff. Right. So it's probably something that I should have been doing anyway, right?
She knows you're streaming, right? She shouldn't think something else is going on.
Oh yeah, I should probably tell her that I don't have a girlfriend at between 11:30 and 3:30 on Wednesdays.
Yeah. I'm the girlfriend.
Yeah, exactly. I've never been that scheduled in my life.
Yeah.
So everybody should be honored that I can make it here and we can sort of start on time, even if we fail.
Yeah, 2 days in a row.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do more streams in the future if we have time.
Yeah.
Or maybe we can say Wednesday is. Now, are you going to sneeze?
No. I was just thinking.
That Wednesday is going to be the absolute, and maybe we'll do one more.
Yeah, I feel like Wednesday is the core stream. I think we need to have some more content out there. So I'm starting to really like this. I enjoy this. And so I hope that comes across to the audience. I hope, I hope I'm worth listening to. I hope you're worth listening to. So, it's all an experiment. But what I do want to do is add some more stuff. Like, I think, especially if we're doing like little tools and things like that, we can do some short format content, right? Yeah, the thing that every streamer does. And so I think it would also be kind of cool if we did like a brainstorming writing session where we sort of minimize the amount of camera and stuff that's going on. And then you and I are talking about like getting into some real ideas for some stuff. I think that would be kind of cool. I don't know if people would want to see it, but it might be.
You mean something like just have a desk or something and have like one camera set up and we're just like
and it's just a brainstorming session.
Kind of like what we did at the coffee place yesterday.
Yeah. Sort of our normal session. Yeah. And so you can sort of see how the ideas unfold, because this is a little bit formalized, right? We have segments that we want to cover and we have topics that we want to cover and we have a thing that we want to read. And so it's a formal situation. There might be, but I know people like do informal things where they're coding and they're working on a problem and they have people sort of participate in their code session and stuff like that. There might be kind of a cool way to participate in a writing session. And I also want to get some guest writers in and stuff too. So I think that would be really cool to have some guests come and read their own work. And so I'm going to start reaching out to more people to see if we can start finding some people that are interested to be on a stream and interesting in putting out their stuff.
Are you going to sit on your shoulders?
What?
You're going to sit on your shoulders?
Oh yeah, we're in a tiny studio.
I can clean that.
We have to come up with another camera and another chair and another place to put a chair. but it's cozy. We can get a little cozier.
Yeah.
Somebody could sit right next to me, and then I could just look at the side of their head.
It'd be warm in here.
Yeah.
We can add a floating chair to the wall. Just have them on that.
The jump seat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll have to be under 120, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's all I got for today. You got anything you want to add or discuss?
No.
Okay. Well, thanks for everybody for sticking with us. Sorry about yesterday. I hope that I hope we don't encounter too many more technical issues. Only onward and upward. I guess we'll be learning a lot more about sort of streaming,
where we just turn it off and turn it on again, and that's how we fix it.
Yeah, exactly. So bear with us. I guess if you get like 2 minutes of dead space, next Wednesday.
Team
it's
Craftable says having guests would be nice.
Yeah, I agree.
I guess we're not enough.
Yeah. So I think guests would be really cool, especially to be able to get some authors out there. To me, it's indie authors, right? So these are people that you've not seen, and so I want to see more of them. So yeah, I agree. I think that's something we should do. So probably in the next couple of weeks, hopefully we can arrange it, and we'll keep making announcements, as to what our upcoming events are going to be, and we'll work some people into the schedule.
All right.
So I'm JD. This is TJ. Thanks for listening to and watching Subluminous, and we'll see you next week.
Subluminous. We are unalived.